The poor man's discus. I've got a couple of them in San Quentin, my 10-foot long American cichlid tank here. And I've pretty much had these fish in all of my setups going way back to when I was a little kid. They're easy to keep, they get along with just about everybody in most situations. But are they a great fish for you? And what gives them the name the poor man's discus anyway? Well, I'm going to tell you about all that, and I'm also going to tell you about an experience I have with one that I had a few years ago that was a complete nightmare, a story not for the squeamish, so be warned. So let's talk about this amazing fish known as the Severum. Their scientific name is actually Heros, but we'll just call them Severums. I have two of them, but we'll talk about other Severum species besides these two. Mine are the mouth-brooding Severum, which is the bigger one, and the little guy, the red shoulder Severum. And they're the most beautiful fish I have in any of my tanks. Well, except for Kevin and Sylvia, the Carpintus, and the cute little Salvini. They're prettier. Oh, and except for Buck, the true parrot. And Katie the Nicaraguan, Buck's girlfriend, is also a step above. Almost forgot about my redhead Tapos. And maybe even Percy is up there slightly edging out the Severums. Oh, and of course, every single fish in Alcatraz, save one. Sorry, Ferk the second. You're at the top of other lists, too numerous to mention. So other than those guys, the Severums take the beauty prize hands down. Mine are pretty fish, but they're not full grown and can get more colorful as they grow. Harold, the mouth-brooding Severum, was the first one in San Quentin. He came with the original batch of inmates I ordered when I set up the tank. He seemed like a really slow grower at first, and he still is, but after several months he kinda took off a little bit, but he's still much slower than fish like Buck or even St. Vincent, my Viejas and Spillum. I'm starting to wonder if St. Vincent is actually a female, by the way. I don't know exactly when the males start to get that nuchal hump, but St. Vincent has no signs that one's coming, and he shows no signs of any kind of telepathy that comes with having one. Over in Alcatraz, Uri the blue dolphin has a nuchal hump, which he uses to control me, make me feed him more than I want to. His will get bigger than this though, and his powers will just grow in strength. Harold's put on some size as of late, and he's looking pretty cool. Love the little spots around the lower part of his face. The little red shoulder Severum has put on a little size since he arrived, but he's still super small compared to the other inmates. And he has a lot of color coming in the future, but not right now. Pretty plain, but still cool. Here's what one looks like when they get older. Plus he gets some points just for surviving in this huge tank with all the other monstrous inmates. Good job, dude. Oh, and by the way, he needs a name, so I'm open to your suggestions. When I was a kid, I had Severums in my 55-gallon tank because I had no clue what I was doing and I thought these fish maxed out at around 6 inches or so. But I was just a dumb little boy. Severums can get typically around 8 to 10 inches in length, but sometimes they can even get up to 12 inches long. Plus they're tall, dude, just like a discus. Almost. But I only had two types of Severums growing up. They were the gold Severum, which looks pretty, but they're a little on the boring side compared to the other Severums, if I'm being honest. The other one I had was the red spotted Severum, which is basically a gold Severum with a penchant for fashion. If I had the choice between the two, I'd choose the red spotted one every single time. And I'll show you some other variations of the Severum in just a minute.
Subscribe or someone dies. Ding ding.
So they call these the poor man's discus for a few reasons. Discus are some of the most beautiful cichlids you can find. Just check out these from Ben Ochart. Absolutely gorgeous fish. And they have lots of variations as well. Extremely colorful, very tall, like the angelfish, and somewhat the Severums, and they're usually very peaceful fish. They move like aquatic sloths and get along with almost everyone. But man, can they be expensive, bro. $50 would be a super cheap one, and plug your ears if you don't want me to shock you with the price of the more expensive ones. $300. Yeah, not even African cichlids can usually compete with that. And they're pretty expensive on their own. So the discus are gorgeous and peaceful, and the Severums are right there with them. When I say right there with them, I mean way down below, but also kind of right there if you're thinking in a grander kind of scale. Like Severums are way closer to the beauty of the discus than the ugliness of a common carp. And if you stop thinking about discus, then after a while you might forget about them and the Severums will start looking really pretty to you again. Seriously though, Severums can be shockingly gorgeous, and it isn't fair to compare them to the elite discus. I'm giving them a bit of a hard time because they really are prettier than what I'm giving them credit for. Severums are a lot easier to keep than discus, which are pretty picky they say. I've never had them because I think they're boring as hell. No amount of beauty compensates for boring in my world, but I've heard they can be hard to keep. However, I've also had lots of comments on my video I made about why discus suck, telling me that they're not so hard to keep, so whatever. Doesn't matter to me because I'll never have them. But Severums are easy to keep. I can vouch for that 100%. I mean, I could even keep them alive when I was that little boy that didn't know anything and had horrible fish keeping practices. You just need to give them some clean water and feed them good food that includes some plant-based food, because they need vegetation. I don't target feed my Severums, so I just mix in some Northfin veggie pellets along with my mix of other Northfin pellets and call it good. Plus it's good to feed them some blanched zucchini or maybe some blanched deskinned peas every now and then as well. It's not too hard to do. But you can't really keep plants with these guys because they'll eat all those too. They don't care what kind of plant it is. Another thing about them is they don't need the water to be as warm as those discus like it either. Discus prefer it around 82 to 86 degrees, so really super warm, and Severums like it about 75 to 82. San Quentin sits around 79 degrees, and they seem to love it. pH should be around 6.5 to 7.5, but mine are living in a pH of 8.4. They seem to be okay, but will that affect the length of their lifespan? I don't know, it could, but I'd rather keep them in a high pH than chase the pH, which could cause fluctuations, and that's about the worst thing you can do for your fish. I've heard that discus are more sensitive to pH and nitrates than Severums, but even so, I keep my nitrates down around below 40. I might even start keeping it below 20 parts per million in San Quentin, like I've been doing in Alcatraz, because of that disease lymphocystis that's been running rampant in that prison tank. So far so good in there, by the way, just in case you're wondering. Since Severums love plants, but they'll heat them all up, you can add fake plants or something else like driftwood or fake driftwood and rocks like I have in San Quentin. They do like to swim through and around things, so try to give them something to do. So I've just shown you some of the Severums that are out there, but there are some other Severums I haven't mentioned yet. They include the red tiger Severum, which kind of reminds me of the mouth-brooding Severum that I have. A pretty fish. And then the other one I've been waiting to tell you about because the one I had was a demon from hell, the green or turquoise Severum. This story is not for the squeamish, so be warned, if you want to skip past, just go about a minute ahead. It's a couple years ago, probably like 7 years ago, when I have a community tank with a couple of mating angelfish in it. And if you haven't had angelfish that mate, it's the coolest thing. They just look like they're fighting all the time, but they're not. They're actually just turned on. Anyway, I really love this pair of angelfish. I'm at the pet store and I see this Severum that I haven't heard of before. It's called the green or turquoise Severum. And he's just a little guy, about like this big. And I think, well, I've always had a Severum in my tank, so why don't I get this guy and I'll bring him home. So I put him in the tank, float him and everything, and release him, and he's doing fine, just like a normal fish would be in a tank like that, and I don't see any problems at all. I turn the light off, eventually let him sleep, and I wake up the next morning to something that was one of the most horrific things that I've ever seen. And do you remember, I forgot to put dechlorinator in San Quentin once and almost killed all my fish. So I've experienced some really bad things. This experience was the second worst experience I've ever had. I wake up and I see my Severum very close to those angelfish who are now over in the corner, huddled together, and the female, well, the male looks completely fine, but the female has been completely ravaged overnight. Both eyes are clouded up, she has scales missing, and her fins are all torn up. She looks like she's definitely on her last legs. So I'm watching and I see the Severum get really close again, and the male gets into an active defense stance, but the Severum's way too quick, and he goes in and darts at her and hits her again and backs away, and the male tries to go after him, but he's just too slow. And I just imagine that this has been going on all night long, this male trying to defend his mate, and he can't do a single thing against this horrible little demon of a fish. So I take that Severum out of the tank and I just torture him for the next 3 hours. I'm just kidding, I didn't do that, but that's what I wanted to do. No, so I take him back to the pet store just like a good boy, but the moral of the story is you never know what you're gonna get with these cichlids. So you have to be ready for anything, even the less aggressive species. It's just the way it is. If you like what you've seen, except for what I just told you about that horrible, evil, wicked, and demonic green Severum, then they might be a good choice for you. Just make sure you do your research on Tankmates. The bigger your tank, the more leeway you're going to have to some degree, but you generally want to keep other fish of about the same temperament. Some good choices could be the electric blue acaras, which are pretty peaceful for cichlids, the chanchita, like my guy Bub here, the chocolate cichlid, like Chaka here. They do fight, by the way, but without ever actually touching each other. They kind of airbox. The red-tailed shark would be a good option, smaller dwarf cichlids that aren't small enough to become food, and maybe even fish like the Oscar or true parrot if you have a bigger aquarium. Whatever you choose, just make sure you have a backup plan if things go south and someone starts going crazy like cichlids often do. Don't put anything too aggressive like Kevin in with your Severums if you have a smaller tank. And by smaller, I mean I'd probably not keep them at anything less than a 125 gallon if I was planning on having a decent stocking level in there. If you just have a Severum or two with no other tank mates, you could probably get away with a 75, but I'd still go bigger, because I start to feel bad for the dudes as they put on some size. These fish get pretty big, like I said, maybe even up to 12 inches. And I've told you before and I'll tell you again, give your fish some room to move and explore. Make them happy. They deserve it. Let me know your experience with Severums, or if you'd like to even have them in your tank or not. And what's your favorite one? Mine has to be the red shoulder, but I do like the others as well. Even the boring ass gold ones are okay. I mean, to some degree.
If you want to know why I'll have Severums, but I will never have a discus tank, then check out this video right here and I'll tell you everything. All right, fish nerds, you've had your fun. Until next time, that's going to be a wrap.